Hi guys, Nada here, and today I'm going to talk about a new version of one of my favorite mini ITX cases of all times, the NR200P Max from Cooler Master. And even though on the outside it looks very much so like the original NR200, the situation on the inside is a bit different, and that is exactly what sets this case apart from its predecessors. So it comes with a pre-installed 850 watt power supply and a 280mm all-in-one cooler, and then with all the cables and all the tubes already pre-routed. Plus, it has a very cool GPU trick in the bag that makes even the largest possible GPUs on the market easy to install in such a tiny case. So they definitely improved the whole building experience, and they made it possible to just easily build a very high-end, very high-power system in such a small space. But does all this make it a perfect option? Let's check it out. This video is brought to you by Corsair and their MP600 Pro LPX SSD. This high-performance Gen 4 SSD offers read speeds of up to 7100 megabytes per second, and it comes with a nice low-profile heatsink, making it a perfect fit for your PlayStation 5 as well as your PC. It is available in several capacities, going up to 4 terabytes, and it comes with a comfortable 5-year-long warranty. Check it out using the links in the description below. Now this time around, it's not just the case that got a revamp, but the box has a brand new design too that is going to be included with most of their new higher-end products. When it comes to design, it is pretty much unchanged. It is very minimalistic, it is very simple and clean, with just a discrete logo on the front, and I think that that perfectly fits that small form factor style where, you know, less is more is just highly appreciated. While you could choose between many different colors of the NR200 and the NR200P, this Max only comes in this gunmetal gray combined with some black details. And the other way around, if you want a gunmetal gray case, this is the only version that offers it. So you get a gray front and side panels combined with a black mesh top panel and matching black feet. And I would say it just looks very sleek and very elegant in my opinion. Now the build quality is also top notch, with all the panels and the chassis being completely metal with just a very few plastic details. You also get an extra tempered glass side panel that you can use instead of the mesh one, so you can show off your SFF build in style. Now the front I/O is unchanged as well. You get a power button, a reset button, 2 USB 3 ports, and a combined audio jack. But unfortunately, there is still no USB Type-C ports, which was kind of also expected because they just reused the same panels. And on the bottom, you do get a simple magnetic filter, so you do need to tilt the whole case to be able to clean it. It might not have the smallest footprint when you compare it to some other SFF cases on the market, but they made it just big enough to be able to fit almost any high-end system that you might have in mind. The included 280mm all-in-one is compatible with all AMD and Intel processors from the recent years, including the new Alder Lake CPUs, and the included 850 fully modular power supply will be enough for most power-hungry systems that you can think of. It fits a GPU up to 336mm of length, so you can squeeze in even the chunkiest cards on the market without any issues. So I would say it is definitely aimed at those tiny but powerful high-end gaming builds. If you are into a lot of storage, you can fit 2 hard drives and a few SATA SSDs as well. There are 2 2.5-inch drive mounting spots behind the front panel, and on the inside you can add a hard drive to the bottom or mount it to the PSU bracket. But honestly, I am totally not sure how those are supposed to fit. There is not that much space left when you install your graphics card, and I couldn't even fit regular fans under the GPU. But I also kind of don't expect that anyone who wants to build a small form factor case will want to deal with big and loud mechanical hard drives at all. Now, considering that you get 2 M.2 slots for any NVMe SSD on most new ITX motherboards, and that there is enough space for an extra SATA SSD or 2, you should be able to fit enough storage that, you know, doesn't make any noise at all. Now, speaking of the GPU position, this is where this case differs from the original version. So in the NR200 non-Max, you could choose between installing your GPU in the typical horizontal orientation or you can use the included riser and put it up vertically. While in this Max version, the motherboard is actually positioned a bit lower to make space for the water cooler on the top so it doesn't interfere with your memory. And as a result of that, the GPU can only be installed vertically using the included riser. So you do lose a bit of flexibility in how you build your system, but on the other hand, I don't think that is a bad thing. So the NR200P Max was meant to make your life simpler, not to give you more choices, and in return, you kind of get one of the absolute easiest GPU installations ever. So you simply remove the bracket on the back, you install the GPU on that, and then put the whole construction back in. And to connect it to the motherboard, you remove the bottom panel and just click the riser on it. That's it. So even if you're going for a ridiculously huge GPU like this RTX 3090 Supreme X, the installation will be a breeze. You just need to remember to kind of connect everything before you put the GPU in, including the power cables of the GPU. Now, for the rest of my build here, I went with the Asus ROG Strix Z690i gaming motherboard. That is pretty chunky for an ITX board, but it still fits with the integrated cooler. And the CPU I'm using is an Intel Core i9-12900K because I really want to stress this system to see how this case will handle it. I have 32 gigs of Corsair Vengeance DDR5 memory, and the GPU is the very large Supreme X. Beyond that, I just added some NVMe storage since the case already came with an integrated PSU and an integrated water cooler. And I was actually really impressed with how well this case held up while gaming, considering it has an i9-12900K and an RTX 3090. So even with the glass panel instead of the mesh one, the performance while gaming was completely fine. So the CPU was going between 55 and 75 degrees Celsius, and the GPU ended up around 77 degrees, and all of that with a completely reasonable noise level of about 39 decibels. Now, usually it is not really a good idea to put a GPU this close to a glass panel, but even with a chunky 3-slot GPU like this one, there was still enough space to keep it working well. And keep in mind that this Supreme X pulls around 420 watts of power, and it creates a lot of heat. So if you have any other GPU that's a bit more reasonable, it will do even better. But stressing the CPU did turn out to be an issue, and I would say that is more of an issue of the processor than the issue with this case, because the i9 does get extremely hot and it's actually very hard to keep it cool. Even if you put it on a test bench, a 280mm all-in-one or a high-end air cooler will still struggle with this chip. So after around 3 to 4 minutes of running Blender, the CPU would hit the high 90s and start throttling. So I decided to add some extra intake fans and see if that's going to make a difference or not. Now, regular fans did not fit under the GPU, as I've said before, so I had to use some low-profile ones, and the only ones I had were these Scythe models, but I would say they go really well with this build, so their color matches perfectly with this case. Also, they're fairly quiet and they're not expensive, so if you want to add some too, they will cost you around $10 or 10 euros each, and if you want to check them out, I'll leave some links in the description down below. Now, with those extra fans, the CPU managed to just hold a 10-minute stress test, but still, I really don't think this is an ideal choice of a processor for an SFF build if you plan on doing a lot of CPU heavy work. Now, personally, I would recommend grabbing an i7 instead. It offers better value and it will perform about as well in games. Or you can go for a Ryzen CPU for the same reasons. Or if you really want an i9, you should consider undervolting it and definitely adding those extra fans. But when it comes to the price, things do get a bit more complicated and very much so dependent on where you live. So if you live in the US, this case will cost you $450, which is a lot. If you go for the base NR200P, a decent 280mm cooler, a good quality 850 watt power supply, all of that will cost you $300 to $350, which means that you'll be paying $100 to $150 more just for the convenience that this Max version offers. And I personally think that is too much, and you're way better off spending it on, anything else really. But here in the Netherlands, for example, this case should cost you around 350 euros, while you would have to spend around 300 euros to buy the case, a similar cooler, and a similar power supply, and then paying 50-ish euros more for the convenience of having some parts pre-installed and having perfectly fitted power supply cables and water cooling tubes is definitely worth it, in my opinion, especially if you're building a PC for the very first time. So at the end of the day, I think this is a great case. It looks beautiful, it is super easy to build in it, and it will perform really well even with a super huge high-end GPU, as long as you avoid the i9. And all you need to do is make sure to look at the prices in your region and decide if it's actually a good deal or not. Anyway, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. It was actually very fun making a case video after so long. If you want to see more of these, please let me know in the comments down below. Now, bye guys, and see you in the next one.